Is the Raleigh real estate market crashing? Realtor.com just labeled Raleigh as the 10th slowest housing market in America. We're gonna dig into what that looks like in today's video, so stay tuned.
So looking at the national market trends that we're seeing right now, increased inventory and longer days on market almost across the board. And the Realtor.com study looked specifically at days on market, and that's where it labeled Raleigh as the 10th slowest housing market in the country. And it was really comparing it year over year, like what's been the change from 2024 to 2025 as far as days on market. And it's not just Raleigh on there, obviously. Most of the areas on there are gonna be the COVID era boom towns that saw explosive growth, and now they're starting to see some of the slowdown coming.
Yeah, and it's not only, just the resale homes, but also when you look nationally at new construction, we are sitting on more unsold new construction homes across the country than we have since 2009. So that is really crazy. And I can kind of see that in our area because a lot of construction has been occurring here over the last, 5 to 10 years. And I mean, especially in the towns when you kind of go like east of Raleigh, like going into Fuquay, Clayton, Wendell, places like that, where there's just like a abundance of new construction options, and also in like the Wake Forest area. So we are definitely seeing a lot of that kind of like taking a longer time to sell.
Yeah, and it's not, our levels aren't as high as the 2009 levels. I actually went back and looked at the new construction inventory levels now compared to 2009, but they are high compared to what they normally are. And you see it with the way builders are acting too, as far as like throwing just massive incentives, whether it's cash to close help or rate incentives. Builders are really throwing a lot of money at buyers right now, both nationally and locally, in order to encourage buyers to purchase their product.
Yeah, so if you are looking for something to help buy down an interest rate, like a new construction home in today's market is gonna be a great way to try it to get that incentive for sure, because I think they're feeling pretty desperate. So, you can snag some good incentives on those new constructions right now.
All right, so what is happening locally? Obviously, we just looked at national data. So if we look at local data, Wake County, specifically Wake County is where places like Raleigh, Cary, Apex, Wake Forest are located. Inventory is up substantially. So you're probably gonna be watching this sometime in August, but real estate data lags. So looking June of 2025, compared to June of 2024, inventory is up, or homes for sale, how many homes are currently on the market, is up 55%. There are 1,500 more homes for sale in June of 2025 compared to June of 2024. That is astounding. Yeah. Now, if you're comparing how were we pre-pandemic, last normal housing market we've seen, like a 2019, for example, we're still below that. But when you're looking like at the change, the substantial change from 2024 to 2025, from a homes for sale or inventory standpoint, substantial growth.
Yeah, and with that too, the days on market have really increased a lot as well. So last summer in June, we were looking at an average of like 35, and according to Realtor.com, now we're up to about 45. So we are seeing things stay on the market for longer, and it's not just a day or two longer. Over a week is pretty large jump.
And that's how the Raleigh area ended up on the Realtor.com list, because of that growth that's occurred as far as days on market go. In terms of pricing, that obviously matters a lot to folks. So what's happened to the pricing in the area? So again, if you're looking just at Wake County and you're doing like a rolling 12-month average of pricing's actually come down 1.7% from June of 2024 to June of 2025. Now that's looking specifically at single family homes. I pulled out some of the others. Townhomes had also come down. Condos, when you're looking at condos, they've actually increased like 12%.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, and so like there have been some increases in certain types of housing, but when you're looking at single families, actually come down 1.7% from last year, which is really in line with what organizations like Zillow are projecting. Basically, a 1.5%-ish decline in home prices over the next year, and we're kind of seeing some of that start to play out.
Yeah.
So why is all of this happening? Why are we seeing a market slowdown? So some of it's seasonal, right? Like as the year goes in the Raleigh area, late summer, early fall, we start to see buyer demand drop. We see inventory peak typically in like the September, October timeframe. And so those months are typically ideal months to buy in because inventory is good, buyer demand is less, so competition is less. So some of what we're seeing is seasonal, but a lot of it goes far beyond that. When you're seeing inventory increases of 55% from comparing 1 month of last year to 1 month of this year, that inventory increase goes beyond the seasonality of the market. So a lot of the slowdown that we're seeing has to do with increased inventory on the market. And at the end of the day, like, you know, there was a period of time, you know, the lock-in effect is what people called it, where you had folks who were locked into low rates, low mortgage rates. They didn't want to move as a result of that. But you can't postpone your life forever. And there's a point in time, and I think we're starting to see it, where sellers are like, listen, rates are what they are. I've got to move on with my life. And they're starting to list their house as a result of that. And so that is feeding into the increased inventory that we're seeing, and that being met with lower buyer demand from a seasonal standpoint, but also mortgage rates are high, home prices are still high, has just created a much slower market than we've seen over the last several years.
For sure. And as we had mentioned earlier with the new construction, there's also just a lot more new construction options. And a lot of those aren't even really reflected in the data because a lot of these aren't even on the MLS. So oftentimes, you know, you'll visit a community and they'll have like 1 or 2 that they've posted on the MLS, but there's a lot of like pre-sale opportunities that aren't necessarily on the MLS. So, you know, there is a lot, even more opportunity than it looks like there is in the new construction realm. So, you know, you just have a lot of competing factors within resale, like a lot more people that are putting their house on the market. Like Zach mentioned, they're just ready to move on. They're not gonna continue waiting. But of course, buyers may continue waiting because they might not be able to afford it. You know, you have a decreased level of affordability since the pandemic on these homes. So we are just seeing, like with the homes that we have listed, you know, the buyers are a lot pickier, you know, they're taking their time.
And flakier.
And flaky, backing out of contracts, like different things like that. It definitely feels very different even than just this time last year.
June, this is just a random stat that I wasn't even gonna throw in the video, but June of this year had the highest contract cancellations of any month ever on record. And we felt that this year. We normally, I mean, honestly, we, over the course of a year, we average about 2 contract cancellations a year. This year we've had 7. It's just a completely different world when it comes to buyers either being slower to make decisions because they feel like they can because days on market are longer. They don't feel that pressure or that rush, which is a good thing at the end of the day. But then buyers also being willing to terminate contracts much quicker than they used to in the past.
Yeah, and largely because they can get a home under contract without having to put down a huge due diligence deposit the way you would have like in previous years. So, you know, here in North Carolina, to get a home under contract, you have this non-refundable deposit that's given to the seller. And in a competitive market, that got really high. Like we would see people putting $10,000, $20,000 down. So it's gonna be a big decision to back out of a deal. Whereas now, if you're just putting down like a couple thousand, a few thousand, and you just have a change of heart, you're like, it doesn't feel like that bad to like have to walk away from that money compared to 20 grand, right? So, you know, it's just a very different time.
It is. All right, so practically, what does this mean to you if you are a buyer? So I think for buyers right now, it's going into the market knowing that you do have leverage, you do have negotiation power, which might feel a little strange compared to previous markets or even spring markets. I mean, spring this year was pretty hot. Competition was kind of the norm, and so you come later in the year and you don't experience that. And so going into the market knowing that you're going to have leverage, especially on the resale side, is really good. But also knowing that on the new construction side, you may not have the price leverage that you have on the resale side, but there are an enormous amount of incentives that builders are offering. I mean, rates, honestly, some rates getting into the 4s. I even saw a rate that got into the 3s. It was a 7-year ARM. So like there are really good rates that builders are offering right now. And so just knowing that those incentives out there exist and that on the resale side, you have some leverage to negotiate terms on the offer that you might not have been able to earlier this year or over the last several years.
Yeah, for sure. And for sellers, I think it's just important to know, you know, even if you bought your house within the last like 5 years when things were crazy, they're not crazy anymore. So you need to be realistic putting your house on the market. You know, we were seeing people gain $100,000 of equity in like 1 year during the pandemic, and that's just not the case anymore. So I think it's going in knowing there's a good chance there's not going to be a bidding war on your home. There's a good chance it could take it like a month to sell. It's not going to necessarily sell immediately. I mean, there are some that still are, like it's very location based and house based, but you know, gone are the days that you don't need to prepare your house for going on the market. You need to make sure it's show ready, photo ready, things that maybe didn't matter as much a couple years ago that are really making a big difference now.
Yeah, for sure. So to answer the original question, is the housing market in Raleigh crashing? The answer to that is no, I think. But we are seeing a return to a normal market. But when you've been on such a high and you return back to normal, it feels more like a crash than it really is. Obviously, the days on market that we're seeing, the inventory levels that we're seeing are still below where we were. In some areas, they're higher. It just kind of, you know, obviously we would take Wake County and split it up into like Cary or Fuquay or Wake Forest, like you would see different numbers. But to answer the question directly, I don't believe we're seeing a crash, but we are seeing a return to normal in the market, which based on where we were, feels like a crash.
Yes, but it also feels like a good thing in a lot of ways. I think it's hard as a seller who maybe had to purchase during the pandemic and now they're ready to move on and the conditions just aren't the same. So it feels like, you know, unfair in a way to them. But, you know, in general, I think this is overall a return to like an easier time to hopefully
and it needs to be.
And
it needs to be, honestly, like buying a home needs to be more affordable. More people need to have the ability to buy a home. And so, anyway. But we're Zach and Cindy Honeycutt. We are a couple real estate agents in the area. So if you are looking to buy or sell, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can find our contact info below, and you can also find us on Instagram.
Yep, we'd love to have you follow along on Instagram. You can find us at the Honeycutt Realtors or at our other account, the RDU Buzz, if you're interested in restaurants and parks and things around the area. But if you like this video today, be sure to like it and subscribe because we put out content like this every week, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.